Greetings, I am Li Ziqian and this is my friend Fadila Wong. Today, we present our comprehensive study of one of Malaysia's Warisan Kebangsaan or National Heritage Sites, St.George Church, Penang. Recognized for both its architectural grace and historical legacy, this church stands not only as Southeast Asia's oldest Anglican church, but also as a symbol of Penang's colonial and multicultural identity.
So first, the historical overview. St. George Church was built in 1816 using Indian convict labour and designed by Captain Robert Smith. It was consecrated in 1819, just a few decades after Georgetown's founding by Captain Francis Light in 1786. So the origins and establishment, 1786 to 1818. The church was established as a key religious institution for British colonists. Initially, exclusive to the Anglican community, it reflected the strong missionary presence in Southern East Asia. Its function was aligned with British imperial and spiritual interests. During the 19th century, several significant additions were made. A portico and fire in the 1840s, stained glass window in the 1860s, and a pipe organ in the early 1900s. It also hosted prominent events such as the 1889 royal visit and became a major spiritual and social hub for Penang British community. World War II, 1941 to 1945. During the Japanese occupation, the church was shut down and used as military storage site. Many fittings like the pipe organ and the pews were damaged or looted. Remarkably, the structure suffered minimal physical damage and services resumed in 1948. While for post-war transition, 1945 to 1969, after the war leadership began shifting gradually from expertise hands to local ones, following Malaysia's independence in 1957, the church expanded its focus from colonial elites to broader community outreach. While the modern era, 1970s to present, St. George underwent multiple restoration in the 1970s and 1990s. It gained interpretive signage and was included in the Georgetown UNESCO World Heritage Site in 2008. In 2017, a new pipe organ was installed, one of only two in Penang. The church celebrated in bicentenary in 2018. While as of today, the church serves as an active Anglican worship site and weekly service, a heritage attraction that reflects both colonial architecture and multicultural values. It also hosts interfaith and cultural events, making it a living space in Georgetown's spiritual and urban landscape. Next, I'll be talking about the timeline of use. In 1818, the first significant event, Governor William Edward Phillips' wedding, while World War II, major damage of furniture and the organ pipe. In 2007, it is recognized among Malaysia's 50 National Heritage Treasure, while in 2017, new pipe organ installed with Malaysia's motif. St. George Church has witnessed several key historical events over the centuries. In 1818, it hosted its first major event, the wedding of Governor William Edward Phillips to Janet Bannerman, marking its early importance in colonial society. During World War II, the church was severely damaged by the Japanese occupation. Its original pipe organ and furnishing were destroyed or looted, but services resumed in 1948. In 2007, it was declared one of Malaysia's 50 National Heritage Treasure, recognizing its culture and historical value. Then, in 2017, a new pipe organ was installed, one of only two in Penang. It features traditional Malaysian carvings, symbolizing a blend of heritage and artistry. This event shows how the church has endured and evolved with remaining vital part of Penang's heritage. Next, exploration of St. George Church, Penang, a living testament to faith and colonial legacy. Standing proudly at the corner of Lebu Farquhar and Jalan Majlis Kapitan Keling, St. George Church is more than just the oldest Anglican church in Southern East Asia. It is a living monument of Penang's colonial past and religion heritage. It is here that British colonial presence meets local memory, where every art, plaque and beam carries silent stories of sailors, settlers and generation of worship. St. George Church holds deep historical significance as the first Anglican church in Southern East Asia. Built in 1818, just decades after Penang was founded by Captain Francis Light, it was not only a place of worship for British colonial officers and settlers, but also a symbol of British influence in the region. Over time, it became a spiritual and cultural anchor, surviving war, political change, and urban development. Today, it reflects Penang's journey from a colonial port to a multicultural UNESCO World Heritage City, where history continues to live within its walls. Unlike Malaysia's colourful temples and grand mosques, St. George Church reflects British neoclassical elegance, simple, balanced and dignified. Its pure white facade, Doric columns and triangular pediment creates a striking presence symbolizing imperial purity and Christian authority. Inside the wooden pews, galleries once separated British elites from local, subtly reinforced colonial hierarchy. The marble baptism font, original since 1818, still stands still in place. Sunlight filters through the stained glass window added later, casting soft patterns on the floor, bringing colours to the solemn interiors. There are untold stories, secrets beneath the surface. Local legend swirls around this historical site. It's said there may be hidden tunnels linking to church to Fourth Cornwalls, but though it's never proven. The church in 1818's bell is rumoured to be cursed, now displayed silently, no longer in use. These stories, true or not, add another layer of mystery to the building legacy, transforming it from a place of worship into a site of wonder.
Let's talk about the current ownership and management of the church. St. George Church is legally owned by the province of the Anglican Church in Southeast Asia and governed by the Diocese of West Malaysia. On the ground, it is managed by the Parish Church Council, made up of clergy, church wardens and lay members. Operational tasks like maintenance, finances, and hospitality are delegated to subcommittees. External heritage supports come from Jabatan Warisan Negara, Georgetown World Heritage Incorporated, and Think City Penang. Despite its rich legacy, St. George faces serious challenges. One of it, structural and maintenance challenges such as peeling paint, termite damage, and weather erosion, threaten the aging 206-year-old building. Past restorations used improper materials like cement, trapping moisture in the original limestone. Tourist access is also limited due to active church functions. There's also financial constraints, as the annual maintenance costs range from 100,000 to 200,000, yet only 30 to 50% is raised through donations. There are no entry fees and grants are scarce. Compared to better funded sites like St. Andrew's Cathedral in Singapore, support is minimal. Public engagement and tourism challenges is also an issue. Tourists often spend less than 50 minutes taking photos and leaving. The church lacks interactive exhibits, a website, or regular social media presence. Only 12% of Georgetown visitors enter the church, compared to 45% for the nearby Koo Kong Si. There's also little school or youth engagement regarding the church. Finally, administrative and policy challenges. Heritage preservation is not the diocese's main priority, so there's no dedicated heritage officer. Conservation approvals require multiple layers from church to state, delaying urgent restoration. Climate risks nowadays like floods and heats are rising, which also poses a threat.
To better understand the current tourism performance of St. George Church, Penang, we conducted a comparative analysis with two other prominent heritage sites, which is the Christ Church Malacca, the domestic one, and the ruins of St. Paul Macau, international one. Although St. George Church has strong historical and architectural value, it attracts significantly fewer visitors compared to the other two. St. George sees about 50,000 visitors annually, while Christ Church attracts roughly 500,000, and St. Paul's in Macau welcomes over 1 million visitors per year. Peak daily visits at St. George remains low, ranging between 100 to 200 people, while Christ Church and St. Paul handle 1,000 daily. One major reason for this disparity is the lack of promotional outreach. St. George has minimal online presence while limited social media activity and no official website. In contrast, Christ Church in Malacca benefits from promotional arm of Malacca UNESCO Tourism, while St. Paul in Macau is heavily promoted by Macau government tourism with viral campaigns, digital content and consistent updates. Another key issue is visibility within tour package. St. George is rarely included in standard tourism itineraries, while Christ Church is featured in over 80% of Malacca tour package, and St. Paul is considered a must-visit landmark in a nearby every Macau itinerary. This significantly limits public exposure and potential tourism-based revenue for the Penang site. St. George Church remains as active Anglican parish, offering regular service in English and Mandarin. It also conducts Bible studies group, organ concerts and charity-based interfaith events. Christ Church in Malacca also functions as a place of worship, hosting prayer meetings and cultural events such as Christmas light-up and festival. On the other hand, The ruins of St. Paul, while no longer an operating church, have been transformed into a public heritage site and venue for exhibition and open-air concerts. Each site functioned differently, but in all three, worship, culture and heritage intertwined to varying degrees. However, St. George offers a more subtle, quiet experience while often goes unnoticed by tourists with prefer high-profile, interactive attraction. Currently, St. George Church lacks formal education programming for students, visitors or tourists. There are no structured tourism interpretive tools or school collaboration. In contrast, Christ Church in Malacca provides UNESCO-supported tours for students and history group. The ruins of St. Paul, meanwhile, offer well-curated museum exhibits on site covering Jesuit history, colonial religion and the wider heritage of Macau. These initiatives boost public awareness and deepen visitor engagement, something St. George Church is currently missing.
So let's talk about the improvement strategies we can do. So first of all, we start with the conservation plan. To protect and preserve the church's fabric and structure, we propose a three-phase conservation management plan designed to follow the standards set by ICOMOS, the Burra Charter and the National Heritage Act. In the first phase, documentation, we recommend using laser scanning with ferro-focused 3D to monitor cracks and settlement, along with archival research into British East India Company records. This would be supplemented by material sampling and laboratory analysis to determine the most compatible restoration materials of traditional lime mortar, specifically NHL 3.5 hot mixed lime as approved by SPAB standards. The estimated cost is around 85,000 Malaysian ringgit, for which a grant from World Monuments Fund has been considered. Stained glass restoration should be carried out in partnership with international experts such as the Corning Museum of Glass in New York. Timber elements should be preserved using borate rod insertion and humidity monitoring, avoiding excessive replacement to comply with heritage ethics. In the third phase, zoning, we suggest dividing the church into two functional zones. Zone 1 will be kept sacred, reserving solely for worship and religious use. Zone 2 will be adapted as a tourism-friendly area, including controlled access and interpretive displays. This approach respects religious functions while allowing better visitor and management. For Tourism Enhancement Plan, to strengthen the tourism appeal, we propose several strategies under three core areas: tourism integration, digital outreach, and community involvement. So one of the strategies is to implement augmented reality tablets. These tablets will offer immersive storytelling experiences such as a virtual reconstruction of the church's original 1818 appearance and interactive introductions to historical figures like Reverend Robert Spark Hutchings. We also propose certified guided tours trained through Penang Heritage Trust. This could include themes like Anglicans in Penang and Stone by Stone, explaining colonial history and conservation techniques. For digital outreach, the church needs a dedicated website featuring 360-degree virtual tour, donation portal, and event announcements. In addition, a campaign under the hashtag St.George Stories could share bite-sized content on Facebook and Instagram, highlighting personal stories, forgotten facts, and behind-the-scenes conservation work. To talk about the Adopt a Stone campaign, where donors can contribute 500 ringgit to restore a stone and receive a 3D replica of 5,000 for name recognition on a plaque. The goal is to raise 150,000 annually. Second, lime plastering courses should be organised in collaboration with Pusat Latihan Kraft Tangan Penang. These workshops can revive traditional skills and promote heritage stewardship among locals and students. In terms of governments, we propose several key reforms. First, a heritage manager should be appointed to oversee conservation compliance, project coordination and communication with authorities. A conservation architect should be engaged to ensure that all technical interventions meet ICOMOS and Burra Charter guidelines. A tourism officer should also be hired to manage tours, promotional campaigns, and events. Financially, the church should introduce structured revenue streams. For example, charging 10 ringgit per guided tour could generate 150,000 annually from 15,000 paying visitors. Corporate sponsorships from entities like Maybank or funding through Think City and UNESCO should also be actively pursued. This multi-source model will reduce dependency on donations and ensure long-term sustainability.
In conclusion, St. George Church, Penang is more than just an old colonial structure. It is a vibrant Warisan Kebangsaan, a national heritage treasure that tells the story of Penang transformation from colonial outpost to multicultural capital. Its neoclassic beauty, layered history and spiritual presence make it priceless part of Malaysia's identity. Yet, like many heritage sites, it faces threats: funding shortfalls, low visitor engagement, and the challenge of balancing preservation with public access. The strategies we have proposed, from scientific restoration and digital outreach to inclusive governance and tourism integration, are designed not just to conserve the building, but to reconnect it with the public. Through these efforts, St. George can become more than a monument. It can become a shared experience, a classroom, a sanctuary, and a story that continues to inspire. Preserving it means investing not only in a place, but memory, culture, and community. Thank you.